It is time for the LG Optimus L9 review, and for me it seemed like a long time coming. After looking at the L7 not that long ago, I had been left wanting. I knew exactly what it needed to make it a very worthwhile mid-range Android handset in the current market, and thankfully this latest upgrade covers a lot of those bases. But is it enough? Let's take a look. In true L style, the phone doesn't try and deviate too far from the now commonplace design within its own range, but also the market in general. It's boxy with slight roundings, fake metallic edges, everything that we've seen over and over again. With the LG textured back panel that has become synonymous with this range and its angular slope off at the edge, the overall package feels cheapened to accommodate a lesser price tag. I never mistook this phone for a high-end device, but it is within its simplicity that its elegance resonates. It's thin, very lightweight, and still manages to house an extremely large display. And the boxed out dimensions, I think, help it not to be too onerous for single-handed use. I often forgot that it had the same size display as the HTC One X. The clean sides were something that I appreciated, and positioning of the unlock and volume rocker were perfect. They did go with the physical home button and replaced the multitasking quick launch capacitive button for a menu button in the same way Samsung does. But the front face was probably the design standout, looking very high end in use. The removable back panel, however, was a little fickle at times, but practice certainly made perfect. I missed my notification light, but as a package, it is a pretty attractive phone, even whilst being uninspired. But the selling point for me is the boost LG gave the specs. The dual 1GHz CPU and 1GB of RAM gave it the necessary power to run a no-compromise Android experience. This was what the L7 alluded at, but failed to deliver successfully. I have no issues with the L9's performance. Even under strain, the additional half a gig of RAM allowed it to keep chugging along without major delays, especially as running the OS with no applications open will use half a gig of RAM on its own, which was the L7's failing. Gaming as well was a much smoother experience with the Power VR GPU. I didn't notice significant dropping in frame rates and no stalling of screens, despite still not ranking highly on 3D benchmarks. The fixed 4GB of internal storage is a pain, and they do not supply a 32GB microSD to compensate, but it is great to have that freedom. NFC was removed from this L series model, which some could question wouldn't necessarily affect them, but in 2 years, as this technology finds its footing, you may have wished LG included it. The battery has been bumped up, giving greater life than what I found with the L7, but it did suffer under stress. I could drain it in around 6.5 hours of continuous video playback, which isn't terrible by any means, but nothing really to boast about. There is no LTE, but data speeds and call quality was excellent, being able to discern speaking voices well from background noise. It's interesting, LG probably could have gotten away with not going with the massive 4.7-inch display in the L9 as compared to the comparatively mere 4.3-inch of the L7 with all the other improvements, but I'm very glad that they did. It gave an experience I come to only expect from the top tier, and it gives it presence in the midfield that is very hard to look past. It is wonderfully bright, and pixel density is slightly better than the L7, despite the size upgrade and only a small amount of edge light bleeding from the corners. They have definitely blurred the boundary of mid to high-end devices by offering such a fantastic display, and I was never once concerned by resolution or color quality. The Optimus L9 comes punching the ice cream sandwich experience with LG's own UX that, much like what I covered with the L7, isn't a particularly heavy approach to Android, which was pleasing. Animations and themes are adaptable to taste, and customization is the usual solid experience. I find LG devices very easy to navigate, and the subtle customizations are fantastic. They really need to work on their app icon choices though, that detract from what could be an extremely elegant and sleek UI. You can change or create your own icon choices, however, from a selection of themes or your own pictures. Some of the Optimus G's killer features are missing, and to detriment, as it would have been nice to separate the L9 software from the L7 the same way the specs did. However, the inclusions that they did make are once again standout features. The quick translator would be an excellent travel companion, being very swift and accurate, and to simply point the camera at written sentences to translate or interpret was ingenious. Likewise, quick memo serves more benefit than you would think. I can't remember how many times I surfed the web or need to describe where somewhere is on a map, and this allows just that, but bulky finger press means you will probably won't get to convey enough information, and perhaps being able to overlay a text box would make this better. Just a thought. LG also brought the My Style keyboard that improves the phone's typing ability when you are limited to one hand. A simple swipe will resize the keyboard to one side, and it actually made a big difference for me. With the accompanying headphones, watching videos and listening to music was great, but without, the inbuilt speakers are still pretty budget. The quality was reasonable, but it still had this tinny twang to higher frequency sounds. DLNA integration is still there and visuals are impressive. The 8 megapixel camera is another great inclusion. The quality of photos and videos were perfect and I didn't find much problems with them. Low light still struggled and the pictures tended to emphasize blues, but generally the photos were sharp and accurate. Taking the lead from the Optimus L7, the L9 did everything I expected it to and more. The massive jump in specs across the board was a significant improvement and one that I felt it needed. The massive display and quality of camera was very appealing when looking in the mid-range market, and comparing it to its competitors, I think you would be hard-pressed to find a better device. The design is not perfect, but it's still elegant enough to grab buyers. The one issue LG has at the moment is the Nexus 4, which is priced only $50 more expensive for me here in Australia. The main difference though is that this would only be getting me an 8GB device with no chance of expanding its memory, where the L9 gives you a maximum 36GB device. 8GB just does not cut it with a quality display like that. All in all, I was very happy with the L9 and am interested to see where LG takes the L-style line in 2013. But until then, I now have the Nexus 4 in my grasp, so keep an eye out for more from LG. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This has been Kurt from KABOOtech. Thanks for watching.